Good evening. Welcome to Friday Nights Live from the Parish. My name is Corinne Erni. I'm the Senior Curator of ArtsReach and Special Projects here at the Parish. And it's my distinct pleasure tonight to be talking to Darlene Charneco. Darlene is this year's Parrish Road Show artist. She has currently a show at the Oysterponds Historical Society in Orient. And in case you don't know where that is, I didn't know when I first got here. It's basically the parallel of Montauk, but on the North Fork. And it's really a wonderful show, and you have until October 24th to see the show. I also want to thank our Friday night sponsors who make these programs possible, our presenting sponsor, Bank of America, the Corcoran Group, and Sandy and Stephen Pearlbinder. And just a little quick note about what Parrish Road Show is. This is the 10th year we're doing this. It's a way to take art outside of the museum, bring it into the community, and we work with regional artists. We ask them to choose a place where they want to work, public spaces, community centers, parks, ocean, wherever they want to work, and create site-specific works. And I know Darlene was at the William Steeple Davis Trust in Orient as a resident, where she created the work, and we'll be talking about that a little bit as well. Welcome, Darlene. You just made it.
I know, just right in time.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everyone, for coming, first of all. And I did want to do a couple of thank yous as well, just for the Parish Museum and Corinne, who initiated the project and has been so supportive all through doing it. The Oysterponds Historical Society, which I did in collaboration over there, has been wonderful. Sarah Sands and Leslie Cohen. Bill McNaught, Scott Gibbons, and many of the volunteers and the docents who helped in many ways to bring it to the community there and help everyone see the show and experience it. The William Steeple Davis Trust was amazing. This is where I had my residency for the last 2 years, and to have me in this very special space that I could study and look at things and create during a pandemic was an amazing opportunity, and I'm so grateful for that. And the trustees have been wonderful, their neighborly support. They're all around me there, so for 2 years. Here, Lauren Ruiz also helped install and did graphic design, and in Orient, Anna Bilski helped volunteer and did design for graphic design. And then I have many friends and collaborators in the virtual world who were helping with this project. I really wanted to make a part of this show have virtual worlds aspects, and I had a lot of help and a lot of really wonderful people that I've known for years, online and in person, who helped from across a distance during a pandemic to have these kind of interesting aspects to the show come forth. So thank you to all of them, and thank you to my husband, who really helped in countless ways, day in, day out, through this project.
Wonderful. Darlene, I want to start off with asking you something that struck me when we started working together, and when I started looking at your work. It seems like there's a deep conviction within you that everything is interconnected, that we all depend on each other, whether it's humans, whether it's communications networks or biological beings. And it shows, I think, in everything you do. It shows in the actual work, but it also shows in the way you collaborate and the way you work and the way you make things. And I just wanted to ask you where that comes from. How did that sort of emerge in your life and translate into your work? And then we can go through,
Right,
the slides.
right.
Yeah.
I love looking at nature and studying biological systems and thinking about us as part of that. We are, obviously, but the more you're looking at different scales, the microcosm and the macrocosm, you're seeing us within that as cells or entities, movements, fluid particles in systems, and it's all layers to me. So you just see constant layers that are interacting. One of the more hopeful things through all these studies that I cling to, but I cling to in a way that I know or feel it's true, is this idea of symbiosis as a way of evolution. So it is not always tooth and nail. It is not something that has to be a war or battle. It continues to be a communication between those layers and the entities within the layers to have relationships that transform over time and balance out in certain ways.
And the title of your show is Symbiosome Schoolhouse, and schoolhouse refers to learning. The show is in a schoolhouse. Maybe we can go to the first slide. So it's really something about where it's not just interconnectedness, but it's also about learning from each other, right? And I think that is also another very important aspect, which we will get to later.
Right. Should I bring up the word now?
Yeah, well, sure.
Well, one of it, so with symbiosis, there are many sim words, and I kind of love all of them. So there's symbiosis, and you can have that as living together over longer term relationships between two different types of organisms or entities, and how that works out. That could also be, it can be different stages, or it can be parasitic, commensal, or mutualism. And for me, the most hopeful is the mutualism. So something that evolves where the different beings are deriving benefit together. So they work something out so that they are not harming each other as much, that they are sometimes gaining a great deal by working together.
I think that's a really nice introduction to launch into the actual show. And so this is Oysterponds Historical Society in Orient, where the exhibition is taking place. And maybe we can go into the actual work that you, or no, there's some other slides first. So maybe let's just go by the way you put together the slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just put the schoolhouse there as this is the chosen site for this show. And again, I'm living and working in Orient, and it's a beautiful area there with a lot of history that you can feel. The layers are very palpable. It's very quiet there. And for some reason, I feel very much more that I can sense time in the past. And when I first went there, I saw this schoolhouse and absolutely loved it. Went up to the steps and felt this kind of the locus of it within the community. And it had moved. So I love buildings that have history but also move themselves throughout the world. But it has a palpable energy, and then it's a learning place, a space of learning. So I like that as a symbol, a metaphor. Yeah. Thank you. I usually go into, because I'm not sure if everyone knows the work, a little background of why I use nails in my work, why I have these kind of very strange tactile field pieces. And there is a process that I have been doing for many years that is in each of those works. It is less visible now as what it was, but it's still there. So I just want to explain that a little bit. So, oh, there it is. Okay. So one of the things I really wanted to do was find a way to use writing in a tactile way. So I was fascinated with communication, basically signals between each other, with the world. How do we express, how do we communicate over distance and over time? And writing is such an amazing thing that we've created that is able to do that. So whether I'm doing this right now, and I love that as well, the voice and sound waves going and you processing that, and it's an instantaneous thing. And then how else do I record that and then give it to you a little bit later, or put it down here and you're able to take it, or generations later are able to access that. So looking into language and thinking about communication for a while, I wanted to write letters in different ways that were tangible. And I tried different ways of doing that. And then I came across the way of hammering nails, because I wanted it to be like a braille, something that you could touch the language and that the words would sort of disappear but be there. So I used as many languages as I could. I was studying them, and I started making characters that would combine them, because I wanted it to be from humanity and not just me.
So that's maybe in the next image, right, where you can see.
Well, this was the first piece
okay.
like that. So
Okay.
it was 2x4s with metal sheeting over it. And that's just showing a detail of it. And it's all different languages to whom it may concern,
Okay.
from the artist at that age.
When was that? When did you
1995.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I loved it. Basically, when I started doing that, it was also the method of doing it that resonated. It did. So you're hammering a nail, and I felt that pulse go out, that sound wave from a point. So not only was I kind of sending a sound wave, but I was locating myself in space. So I felt that very palpably. That was, okay, I am here right now, and I could kind of see myself differently with that point going in and then that ripple heading out. So I wanted to make something that would last and would be maybe seen later, but I loved that there was something being sent out at that moment. So that became very important to me, and I was kind of tapping out like a Morse code, something that was rippling out. So those I started doing as a letter.
So making language really tactile, making it tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a sound, and something that is resonating, going out from a point, and then held somehow in a material. So I wondered what aspect of that is recorded also in the nail, in that little vessel. So is there something that remains there as well as is sent out? Just curious to me, but it was a beautiful practice, and it grounded me while doing it and became very meditative, the sound of it and sending out. So what I wanted to send out at the times were those questions, just kind of, that also helped me to ground myself in humanity, let's say. So I was thinking about where we are at this time. So I had started with where I was and sort of writing journals and sending out things like that. And then I was a little bit more trying to think of we and different aspects of our global community as a part of a body, and that I was part of that, and I was just sort of communicating or sending something out. So I started making This Is a Book of Hope. It was a series for many years, one every few years, with prayers, hopes, visualizations for humanity for the next years to come. Just sort of putting it into a spin of that these things are true, like that we are doing this together. And at the end of the sentence would be one nail head with a bit of resin on it. And for me, that was a little world that would be possible. So it was just visualizing that next, creating a tomorrow that was possible, that was a little bit more compassionate, or was working towards something together.
Again, this is quite a while ago, but it seems so pertinent to today. I mean, especially with the pandemic and everything that's going on now, you know, to have that kind of like putting hope out into the world.
It's something that I had the questions, I think many of us did always, but where are we headed and how are we going to get there together? Each year has its challenges and really unforeseen things happening. And I feel that many times it was the group challenges that were pushing us in this way of evolving something together and remembering that we had to do it. And I don't want that to always be the way. I think that every day we have to think about how we can do it together before the next cataclysmic thing that is, kind of pushing us. It's a constant. So that a lot of this, it became the idea of constant small actions. Every day, what can we do? Small thing. And that matters. Even if I can only do one small thing today that has to do with that bigger picture, what is it? And let me just do that little thing. And it adds up. And there are other people doing it. And it's part of a larger organism. So I felt this as a weave. So now the pieces started to become, I condensed the sentences into one nail because I realized I was repeating if I was hammering out a sentence. So after the Book of Hope, I started condensing it into one nail per sentence or hope or visualization. And then I let them start to weave. And that was a different feeling as well. I was giving a little bit of more freedom to it, and it started to take on its own forms.
So you kind of let a different kind of language emerge, more visual language, I guess. Yeah.
I think, it started to become much more topographic. So it's text, it's topography, and like a tapestry, just seeing us all embedded within this, or like lace, which I love now even more so because I'm seeing time as these loops, and that we need to return to something and then connect it to what we've been working on and connect it again. So there's another aspect that I'm kind of loving to see with loops now. And that there is this perhaps amazing, beautiful pattern that we are going to see and understand. That sometimes I do feel like going through a certain day that I've made a loop. And there's something that was just brought into a circle. And it's very important for the next step, but it had to do with something that happened 7 years ago.
Right, and we'll see that later on in your work. Also, patterns are really important. Again, it's like you created your own language with patterns and colors. That comes in as well. The next one, I find that really an interesting work, and that's in the show, where, and I'll let you talk, but I found that really interesting because you talked about these being two houses that one is the house from your childhood, and one is, I think, the schoolhouse.
It's actually the house that I was in the residency of. Yeah, so it's a historic house, the William Steeple Davis house. So when I started the residency, you're allowed to live in this home that William Steeple Davis, an artist from Orient, lived his entire life. His grandparents built it. He was born there, and he became an artist. He was supported to be an artist from a very young age, and I think because the parents also had creative leanings and wanted that for themselves in some ways. And he was supported to do that throughout his life, and he did prints and photography, and he was just very inspired by the natural world around him. Very inquisitive. I found the history is all in this house. That's why there's also books that were written, excerpted from the diaries of his mother, and letters that she wrote to the grandmother. And I was able to kind of be in this house, which for me, I love memory palaces. So as a metaphor, again, I feel like we are almost walking through a memory palace, a construct in a way that reminds us on a daily basis of things. So if you think of it as, in certain traditions, as the world is a mandala, or you are walking through a certain shape, and at each turn there's something there to remind you. So I love the idea of a memory palace, things that, it's based on an ancient mnemonic technique to be able to recall a lot of information through a spatial armature, and you would use a house or use, it could be an outdoor area, but usually it was a house that you knew very well. And as you would navigate the rooms mentally, you could extract bits of information and memories.
So when you were at the residency, you had memories of your home, of your childhood home?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I always do, and I have many works that have to do with the house as this armature for information and life dreams. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if anyone else has their childhood home or a home that they knew very well reappears in the dreams, and other things will happen there, but it's surreal in different ways. But it's an armature, it's there. And I loved to play with that. I loved to play with my grandmother's home, different spaces that I could navigate in my mind and almost visit them tactily. I would open a drawer and smell the wood and hear the creaking, and then I would put that down.
Was that one of the first works you did? Because I feel like that's kind of like setting the tone for the exhibition, and it's the only diptych you did, and it's the sort of the most specific or most descriptive work, if you will.
I just wanted to, when I landed into this house, to feel it. So the diptych is called House Readings, and I just felt that there was so much there that was tactily available and could be sensed. So I wanted to sit with it. I read the books, and I felt myself in someone else's life, and I was reading that life as well. And so it became a layering. This wasn't my family, but I became embedded into this structure and its memories and its rooms. I could read about his mother getting married in that space and sit on the couch, which is a newer couch, but in the locus where things were happening in the past, and feel that out. So a lot of this, I love when the piece is next to me, because I can show you tactily where you go up in different places, but climbing the
Which
stairs.
Which one is your
So this is my childhood
okay.
home.
Okay.
And that one is the William Steeple Davis home. So yes, you can see the stairwells there, and there are two over there.
And so you also got some little miniature furniture and
right,
yeah.
Because those for me are also about sort of storing memory.
Right.
I have other pieces that are just bits of furniture all arranged, and it's just how do we store, access, and retrieve lots of information.
I think the color is interesting too. It's white, and you have very few colored dots. What made you decide to make this in white? I mean, not many of your works are plain white.
Actually, when I started with the weaves, I wanted it all white. Mm-hmm. So I started doing the topographical pieces in white, just to really lessen the other senses in a way, so that you could feel more. And then those bits, that little salient bit of color would stand out so much more. And it was a little bit like finding your way in the dark, or if you're blind, but there was a hushing of things so that you could see more of the subtle detail. And I love to work with white. I do that in a lot of the weaves, but then I also like to play around with color when it suits the theme. So with this one, I really was just feeling my way throughout. And there are details throughout. There's that are either metaphorical or represent the real writing desk here. But this is the idea of shelter growing around us and growing from us as well. I love thinking of that in a biological way. Like these are, and we do it the same as humans with architecture, but we're using the materials around. But a snail or they're excreting things and beckoning things from the environment around, and this becomes their home, a shelter around them. So I love thinking of things in that way, and also the gift of shelter. I have a poem I forgot I did that goes with that piece. I might as well. Okay, so this is the poem that went with the piece, and this was the first project of the residency. House readings, Ars Memoria. Reading, feeling, layers of the house. We step through books and portals into landing points of lives. Those who were, are, or will be here, then, now, and soon, are waves of ancient light, traveling microscopic maps, walking within, weathered windowsills and desks, growing chamberlets of memory for fingertip retrieval, trusting, orienting, both inside and out. Something helps us translate into this tactile code, a morphic resonance of future hopes, our newest shells and bones. Aggregate and crystallize in magnetized solution, we are both the mystery of snail growing home from mantle and hermit crab exchanging one found house for another. Childhood home and city street fold, repeat the pattern. Somehow it all does fit, one space within the other, a nested matryoshka, a matrix mandala. And that was something that I loved thinking about, is nested spaces. So spaces that are within and within and within, and you can go either way. I don't think I have it in the right order here to see. I'd love to show the bismuth.
Let's see what's next.
I just go.
You can just go with the arrow, yeah.
And this has a nested spaces within. This is a sculpture in the show.
Right, and that what's interesting here is also that you wanted to have this kind of flat and not on the wall. Right? So it's
this piece is what's up right now.
Yes.
Okay. I see.
And it's connected to the school, the learning, like an amphitheater.
Yeah, that one
learning,
is
right?
a library, and I'm wondering if that, I know that I put other photos later of that, but this was also to show the size of house readings within the schoolhouse and this sort of where it is.
Right.
But then we are landing within one space in that center, and I will get back to that portal piece that you're seeing. Well, when I was saying of nested spaces, I started thinking of things like this, and it's just for me to be able to hold materials and play with them in a way that I'm just trying to feel out something.
So this is interesting because this is a really different material. It's sculpture. It's a completely different method. Can you talk about the method and the material and how is this something you've been doing for a while, or did this just come up for this particular show?
So the idea of memory in a crystal or in a structure that is compacted, again, it goes back to what I was saying about wanting to condense information to give it further or to hold it in something, have a vessel. So then, again, as I said, it's all layers. The house itself, the idea of the memory pillar, so the armature around us is compacted, And all the memories and all of the information is then within something that for me becomes almost a handheld size. So something that then can connect with other things. And that's part of, I have a series that is the Self-Assembling Memory Palace that is about memory and memory retrieval, these thought forms or these ideas and composite information, they can interact with each other the way organisms do. And I picture that going forward.
Right, and like you said, I mean, memory is something important for wayfinding, for us to position ourselves in the world and recognizing things. And I think that comes back to what you say or posit, that everything's interconnected. So our memory is connected with the future. It's connected with something else that we may not have known, but actually somehow we recognize it because we're made of the same substance. So I think that playing with that notion of memory and interconnectedness is really interesting to me, and how it manifests.
I'd like to think of it as also navigating these spaces. Right. So again, if you've condensed the information, you can loop back, but in a way I love to see a doorway or a window and connect in that way. So they are either biological forms, but that grow. And at some point, I hope I do have a picture of the bismuth in here. Let's see. This is the learning library again. And there should be another. I'm going to zip forward to see if I can find it. Oh, there's bismuth. Okay.
Good.
So this is an element, crystal's element 83. Is it coming off?
I think your braid is touching the microphone.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Sorry. Okay. So on the periodic table, it's element 83. It's bismuth. And it's just an amazing, amazing form. This is a crystalline structure that wouldn't happen necessarily in nature, but when conditions are right, you can make it at home. But people create it in the lab, just cooling and heating at a certain level. And when it cools, it will form those chambers. For me, that's fascinating, as that mixture of almost something in the natural world that grows these forms, and thinking of it in this infinite way, that those labyrinth pathways are forming of themselves. That's how I visualize information and our stories kind of meshing together, or finding pathways from one to the next, whether it's my life and your life. And at 6 years old, there was a door, and that connects it. And we have a certain similarity right there. That's just beautiful to me. That was... I love it. Okay. This is another series, but I included it in the show because it's continual.
Right. So it's a little bit of a different technique, but also just out of curiosity, because when we tried to hang some of the large pieces, they were heavy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how many nails do you have in one of those?
I have no idea. There are people who like to count them, and they're welcome to. And
but so there's also a physical aspect of those, you know, that they're, you know, they're very present, and with all of those nails. This is a little bit different, right? There's different type of nails, there's a lightness to this. And was this a new type of work that you made in Orient?
No. So most of these they're series that continue in, as I see it, almost branches of something that's growing. And I will return to it and do another one based on where I am. So this particular way, it came out of, if you can see, like the Book of Hope where there is one nail head here and one nail head here, and they're here. This is condensing the field of the information a bit, having them all be the nail heads this way. And they are, when I started to see them in that way, it was taking in information at once in a multitude, like a wave or like scent. So, which I absolutely love to do. I'm sure others do. And this is my favorite month, and September and October to do that. But just breathing in things where memory is triggered, where you're just getting a lot happening in your brain from almost an invisible wave of something that you're detecting. And I love to think about humans doing this, and also other animals, how many species have even more intense and different ways of taking in the environment, how much information there is in every bit of air around us that we have a slight ability to take in, but it is there. And of course, as humans, we've devised tools to be able to detect different things in the air. But we also have a visceral ability to do it, and we don't know. And that would be part of the studies in biology. I love insects and learning about moths and learning about antennae and thinking about senses in that way, that the antenna is something that evolved in order to detect the most subtle bit of a particle in the air, miles, going miles. You can find someone or find their, the moth is waiting for their mate or looking, and that's amazing to me. So that's something that grew again. How did that happen? How do we grow our senses? How do we become finer tuned to what is happening in our world, so that we know whether also the animals sometimes can detect when something is happening, or if there's going to be an earthquake, or if there's different sensibilities. So a lot of these pieces are lighter too, in that it's moods, and I call it visual perfume. So I am also
very evocative, for sure.
I love to do it. So some of it is like almost being a perfume.
The wet grass after the rain, and you can smell that.
Yeah. This was pure joy to me. So this is verdant returns. And after the pandemic, and after a lot of stresses and all the, just being in the backyard and seeing the little bits of the tree flowers that had just fallen all over, and smelling things, and every bit of it was heightened for me. And it was something that I wished, again, like a perfumist says, I would like to bottle this, and I would like to be able to give it to you if you ever need it. This is Spring Orient Verdant Returns, and it was so good. So, love that.
You painted it first, and then...
No, I hammer the nails first, always. So again, it's part of still hammering a nail is sending out hopes and wishes and thinking of that for humanity. So that part of the process. And then this beautiful, the colors on top. Actually, no, you're right. With perceptions, I'm doing a wash first.
Right.
With the other, the weaves, I'm doing after. So here I'm washing it first, then afterwards each of the smaller nail heads get painted. Right. And this, I feel like you're seeing it, but you're not. So this is the neck. So again, microcosm, macrocosm. So within every bit of that information that I like to see as a field, you can dive into each one. And each one is its own world, and its own world to understand and go further and deeper. Right. And so they have little galaxies and worlds of their own. and I called some of this evolving perceptions. So I feel like we're in that, and I think that's just one of the more joyful parts of life, is being able to learn more each day and find something that's fascinating and just dive into it. Again, that was the bismuth. Right. So this one is mutual medicine flower. And that, so again, I'm putting out the hopes and wishes there. I've been watching the insects and the plants as closely as I can, and a lot of what I've been noticing is how much pollinators or ants, things that we don't even think of that much as pollinators or useful in what they are doing. So just out of curiosity, even as a child, I always was wanting to just watch the ants, but I've developed it further.
But it's really interesting, again, how the micro and the macro interact here. I mean, it could be, you know, a cell under a microscope, or it could be a landscape from an airplane. And I think that's what's really fascinating about your work. And I see that, you know, particularly in this work, for example, where, again, you know, there's something dreamlike about it, where you can imagine a lot of things and where it can trigger a lot of memories, different kind of memories.
That's what I hope. Great. With these pieces, I was, though, watching also these interactions happen where bits of the ants are passing over areas of plants over and over again, and they're just in areas that you're watching. What is happening there? And there is this gradual interaction that is at every part of the growth of this plant. They're co-evolving together. And there is something of the walking, there is something of the passing. The plants grow nectaries. They grow pollination, you know, flowers for all different sorts, but they also grow in unexpected areas, extra floral nectaries, little bowls of nectar that are specifically for the ants to come and walk in this area and then pass here. And thinking of that over time, how that slow and delicate relationship evolved over time is so fascinating to me. So what are we doing in our level that is similar? I'd love to kind of then branch out again, in and out. So if we are doing this walking, where are the nectaries? What are we part of? Are we creating nectaries for others? Are we kind of pulling things closer, working our relationships in certain ways, rewarding each other, and, you know, supporting each other? What is growing of that? And just seeing it as this larger organism.
I'm wondering if we should move into the virtual world, because that's also a part of your practice, and I'm really curious about how the virtual and the material world intersect in your work.
To tie it in here, I guess first I'd have to go back because the virtual world is not something that I'm exploring now. It came to me through a dream. So way back when I was starting to write these letters out to the universe, I said it somewhat jokingly, I'm sending out things and I'm getting answers, but I would have these amazing vivid dreams. And I often felt like a lot of the questions that I was asking were answered in vivid and beautiful and sometimes holographic visions that were dreams. And the dreaming mind is fascinating. How does that work? What we're taking in all of this information, and then our brains are rearranging it into a navigable scene and story that gives us even more meaning. Sometimes. So sometimes they're very mundane and interesting in their own little ways. But I've had some major dreams that have, in a way, even though I'm sleeping, have awoken me to a different potential. One of them was this virtual world. And I wasn't at the time interested in that. So it was very tactile and I want to work with sculpture in my hands, and I want to write handwritten letters, and I don't want to email, and I don't. But this was a fascinating dream that was showing a potential. And it was a hugely hopeful vision of people interacting in virtual worlds and also real worlds, so spaces around the world that were game-like, and you were interacting with each other and playing games together, but they had a collaborative aspect to it. So your way of being was with the idea that together we're doing something positive for the world.
I find that really fascinating that, I feel like in the virtual world, you kind of became very real because you're meeting people in these created spaces, in created learning or philanthropic spaces. And you actually also know these people in the real world, right? Or you kind of, sometimes, right?
Yep.
You can stay as an avatar and nobody knows who you are, or you can actually reveal yourself in that world. And I find it really interesting that it seems like you're very active in the philanthropic and the learning environments in that virtual world. Can you just talk a little bit about how these encounters happen, about your activity in the virtual world?
So after that dream, I started looking into it. First reading. I love books, so I just was trying to figure out what am I looking at? What was that? And then I started learning about different types of virtual worlds. Some were very, very basic with just a smiley face here, and you're within a chat room. And then other ones were much more in depth, where you created an avatar and you would interact with others within a simulated environment that was co-created. Mm-hmm. Second Life was one that I loved. It wasn't quite what I saw in the dream, but I felt like the potential was right there. And this was people coming in from all around the world. You create an avatar of any kind. You can make it look like yourself or not. And then it's open-ended. It's not a video game with this is what you're to do. It's a space. So you're meeting in a space together. What do you do with that? And of course, people do all sorts of things. I felt very strongly just that I was there to do what that dream was showing me. I was just being part of it. And that was that this was going to evolve and we were going to co-create it over time. I didn't know how long, but it's still evolving.
So some of the activities or the projects that you initiate in the virtual world, do they actually translate into the real world?
Yes. So I'm part of something called the Nonprofit Commons there, which is nonprofits from around the world have a space there, and any nonprofit can have an office and have an area where they are interacting with others, displaying information about their nonprofit, and communicating across any barriers. So especially during a pandemic or something that limits your ability to find the people that you're working with, this is another way to do it. I'm most hopeful when there are people working together to raise funds for something. There's a huge, there are relays for different charities every year that people who aren't able to walk in real life are doing marathons in the virtual world and raising thousands and thousands for different causes.
Amazing.
There's throughout here, there's different organizations that are raising funds to build schools, and you can create a realm where you're showing that as well. So you're walking within the space. The bricks are tangible in a way, and they represent what is happening in Kenya or what someone is working with. And it's just another way to explore information. So I love these learning environments.
Right, right. And you created a little video especially for the show. Should we show that?
Sure. Well, I think that one of the ways I just wanted to tie it in this show was to create the building itself. So there is a replica in there of the schoolhouse, and the exhibition is still in progress, but is being created within that virtual world as well. So then people are able to access that space, and these are different individuals that I have been collaborating with within Second Life, and a lot of them are librarians. This happens to be just an interest of mine, that is learning spaces in libraries. So there's an island there that is all libraries, also publishing houses, and poetry circles, and different people that are in love with writing, the written word, and being able to share with each other across distance on those common topics, or to create, if there's even things like book clubs that are, you create the realm around you, that you're immersed within something. So we can play the video, I guess.
All right.
It's just going to be, these are just snippets and samples of some of the activities and people that I've been interacting with.
It's like 5 minutes, right?
Not even.
Not
It's
even. Okay.
No, it's 3
right.
minutes and 14 seconds.
Okay.
314. It's infinite, but it's small.
Okay.
And there's no sound, so I can sort of speak over it.
You can speak over it, yep.
So this is a digital replica, and it's a librarian in Hawaii that we were working back and forth with images of the schoolhouse, and she's creating the shape around it perfectly. And that's me. And this is my friend Julie. She is a writer and translator in Quebec. And she agreed to kind of walk through in the video for us.
I think, Darlene, you have to move that, yeah.
The video is shot by my friend Eclectic. So again, we just used the structure itself, which I was so enamored by. This is Val Librarian. She's a librarian as well, and researcher of digital worlds. This is my friend Eclectic. He's doing the filming as well. Has a wonderful Tesla hat.
I love the hats.
Right? You can express what you're passionate about, and that is something he's... Any of the spaces, of course, also can be generating income to help each other. So this is part of New Media Arts, which works with trying to build up the libraries within the virtual world.
So have you actually met in the schoolhouse, in the virtual schoolhouse, with other people?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I met other librarians and other different... So this is that, I decided to put the schoolhouse within this library land.
Okay.
So this is what I was saying. There are other buildings that other people have created. that are on that same parcel that you can explore and walk through. And there's a library, this is Community Virtual Library, where librarians are on call and on there to help people with research or whatever at that time. So this is where I've met different people I love. You can access some of the classics and some books there also online. But if you're doing a special project, there are medical librarians from Puerto Rico, from all the different places that also help people with research. And it's just a different way of interacting with information. If you're really involved in your studies, sometimes it's nice to kind of deal with a person. This is the Nonprofit Commons. There are meetings every week and presentations. People are explaining what they do, what they work on, and collaborating with others. And then it is a very hopeful place where we are kind of thinking about sustainable development goals and what the technology, how best it can be used. If we're creating spaces, what way can we utilize these spaces in that they do affect the real world positively and not just be an escape? So this is the beginning of an office. I have Microphilanthropy 10, which is also part of that dream that I had many years ago, but it was about the little bits adding up. So microphilanthropy, that we could collectively be generating very helpful amounts towards goals that we have decided are very important collectively. And I do it with my artwork as a practice. So whatever, if I'm selling a piece, 10%, and this was part of the dream, so 10% is now distributed, and I collect lists of the different nonprofits that tactily and topographically I feel are part of a body. So it's nourishing and sending pulses, tiny pulses, like I said, whatever I can do each day, if I can do one thing, it's also weaving things together or sending a pulse of nutrient. And that's part of a larger organism doing that. These are just spaces. I mean, you can have any space that you feel comfortable in or are intrigued by. This is Nemo, who created took some of my sculptures and made them immersive, which I was loving. But we can be within areas and get together and discuss things at whatever time from Canton, Ohio, and New York, you know.
So much better than Zoom.
I enjoy it better, yes.
Yeah.
So this is one of my sculptures, which I might have I have the next slide, is that. But I always pictured it as a vehicle, as something that you could be within. And again, I tell you that I do things in a sort of handheld way, but in my mind, I'm in there. So all my pieces are large realms that I'm playing within. But this was wonderful to have happen. And they're just parts of experiments that I feel are part of something we're growing together. We're practicing collaborating. Right. So it's just, what can we do over distance, little bits, and then what can grow of that as we get better at it.
Right, right. So I like I said before, I think it's really interesting how your work in the virtual world has very sort of real life goals. And whereas your material work feels more dreamlike, you know, I find that really interesting, and how it connects. Yeah.
This is another little piece that is a handheld part of that other sculpture that I showed you before. But I was holding this in my hand, picturing it, and it had so much meaning to me that it was conversations in space-time in a place where we could sit as transitions were happening. And there are different little shapes in that are working with my brain in a certain way, that as one space closes, another one is opening, and then we're on that trajectory together. So I'll show, that was the sculpture that we were flying around in. So it's a resin piece. And
that's a very small work.
It's it's 12 by 12. It's in the show there, and the piece is in there. Right. And interestingly enough, I titled it Memory House Aloft back when, and one of the nonprofit commons islands that we're now building our office on is called Aloft. And this is going to be the little vehicle to go from one to the other. I always find that to be a little loop.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the video in the schoolhouse, in the space. And that's, I mean, really it is just like he made it in the virtual.
Right. The detail.
Yeah. Oh, so that's the little version of it within that sculpture.
Yeah, so you took the house, the sculptures, the artwork, and just mixed it all into the virtual world.
That's video. What they always sort of represent. It's these structures that you are within and that expand into navigable other metaphorical realms.
Right. Should we take some questions from the audience, or is there some more?
Let me see where we are here. I keep thinking, so that's again about memory share. Mm-hmm. So this is an older piece showing those same structures, but as bits of one person sharing their memory palace with another. And here's the picture I was looking for before that kind of shows it more.
Right.
So this particular one is in the center of the room and is, for me, a learning library. So we are sort of landing within that form in the center. And this is hopefully something that will be created in a different way as well. To me, this is a model of something, and it's very exciting to me. So there will be ways to interact with the information and projects around the world landing into that center part. And that's sort of a next project that I'm working on.
Okay.
I think that this is the William Steeple Davis house. I just wanted to kind of show part of this wonderful memory palace there. And now I would kind of climb up the stairs there, and all his books are there in the picture of him.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you.
Wonderful presentation. Let's take some questions from the audience, if there are any. Anyone? Yeah, there are two.
I just wanted to say, I saw the show 2 weeks ago, Oysterponds.
Right.
And I live in Greenport, and I was just blown away. And then I wanted to try and describe it to a couple of art teacher friends of mine, and I found, I don't have the vocabulary, I can't explain to you, what exactly was going on, but I'm a newly retired librarian, so now
there you go.
Oh, you have to come on in. A lot of them are retired, and this is just another way to, there's you know what, there's a gap, and I want to figure out the next, this is just part of how to be helping the generations throughout. It's in you, that's what I love about librarians. There's something, it's these custodians of information and helping people to learn and to follow their path, but helping that. I love it.
And although the pictures are wonderful, it just, there's nothing that can prepare you for seeing it in person.
Oh, that's good to hear. I didn't want to give away too much in this way. I'm I still want people to go because it's so tactile.
Right.
But I'm glad you said that. Yes, I would love it. If people haven't been able to go, it's a very tactile.
What are the hours at the place?
It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So on Fridays, it's 2 to 5, Saturdays, 11 to 5, and Sundays, 2 to 5. And it's up until the 24th of October.
So 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I love that you go from the macro to the micro in every way.
There's a deep spiritual thing that I connect to, and without your ever saying that word. I don't think you said it, but it's just present. And that was a really wonderful thing. And I had to share that I never said, oh, I want to be a woman artist, like I want to be part of. I never like being part of a group that does we do this. And yet, recently, and in the world as it is, and bereft as we are, I do feel there's a female, whether it's within men or women, applied impulse that I sense from you and other artists who are working in new technologies, but are still that moonlight nurturing thing that we need in this earth, on this earth, without being fancy, without being like saccharine, but and serious. And you know, I just have to say, I love it's been very inspiring to listen to you. And I've watched your work for a long time.
I know.
Yeah, all the way back to when it used to be landscapes, kind of like when you look down on them.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You can still, yeah.
I just so much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
That was, thank you. I think there was Scott.
Hello.
So I haven't seen the show yet. I'm really hoping to this weekend. I wanted to know, are you wearing a VR headset when you're in the second?
No, this is not VR. So I'm intrigued by VR, but I don't think I would do so well with it. So this is not that. There is a certain, for me, a comfort in that distance or being able to see this much in front of you and interact just in that way.
And also, are you thinking about maybe taking some of the nail weaving and turning those into environments where you could walk around
Yeah, so that's, again, that will be, I've done it a few times just at certain scales, so it's almost an in-between. You're climbing onto an artwork that would be, this size, but you're climbing on. But that the learning library is definitely one that you're going to land within it. Those nail heads are your size. And then the realm is around you of the information portals and their rooms. So you'll be able to kind of walk through and then walk into another information room. And since you can teleport within Second Life to any aspect, it's so amazing to think of it spatially in that way. So you can create something that is attached to a much larger space, and you're navigating it, feeling like you're navigating it. So you'll walk through one, but hit that point, your next step can be very far away, quote. And I love playing with that. That's something that I want to go further with this in organizing the information that I would like people to be able to access easily and smoothly. So it's really just exploring that. How can we?
I want to add on to that I love how you talk about access. It's not being further away, it's taking this new medium or what you're talking about, this new world, and bringing people into it in a way that, like the first cave wall, it wasn't just about saying, oh, look at the beasts who can kill us, but how can we have a relationship that's like, I think that we're in this new realm where I think art is fine, but it shocks or it all these things, but we have such access to all of that that I think there is a new call for artists to say, how do we help people with all this information? Make meaningfulness again, and real meaningfulness, which I love your nesting thing too, because I was thinking, how does she stop when she's doing the nails? How does she stop? Like, you just want them to keep going? I mean, I keep thinking, how do I break out the square? We all live in squares. So I wonder with you, but I think it's almost internally built in that you have this nesting thing that I guess keeps you inside of space. I don't mean to confuse you. Not to make questions.
Yeah.
Well, Roz, what is your question? But I am trying to get to a question. Something that is, it's intriguing, the context.
I think I can stop. It allows me to be able to stop although I always see it as part of a larger pattern.
Yes.
So it's saying, and the pieces, I love to do that fractally as well. So one of the white piece, this one.
I kept thinking of Mandelbrot a little bit when you were speaking.
This one, let's
Yeah,
say.
Mandelbrot.
Yeah, yeah.
You're taking the organisms of life and making them bigger and bigger, but they're still small, and they replicate. Yeah.
So this one is unfolding. So this is a space-time symbiosome, and it is unfolding the spaces in this way. So I could have a piece that is one corner of this, and then expand it in different ways, going as far out, and different patterns are merging, and we're within that pattern. I love that thought. Also within time, there's light passes with the nail heads as well, many times making two lines or connecting them.
Are you able to stop though in that nesting sense that you have? Are you able to stop the piece that you're doing at the time? Or do you always think of it as evolving to another piece? You know what I mean?
It's I think I'm able to stop it, but knowing that it's part of this larger puzzle. Yeah. So then it's like, oh, that piece is there. Interesting. And where will it go? It can be within this other space, or it can unfold into a larger space. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
It's very, very hopeful work. Yeah. Thank you.